Hey everybody, this is Patrick from Sasquatch in the Wild. And I see everybody made it. Good. Because this journey is going to begin. So this happened back in September of 2016. I was part of SIR, and this has nothing to really do with SIR. I was talking to Mike about where should I go camping after I leave Yellowstone, and he told me where I should go, and I was like, okay. And that location proved very interesting, but that's not in this video. So Darla and I decided to drive and do a tour of Wyoming, because I never really explored Wyoming, and there are some really intriguing areas of Wyoming. I found structures in areas I did not expect. I found structures in a lot of the First Nations areas that we were driving through. Thankfully, we never got stopped by the Wyoming police or the First Nations Police Department. Those folks they're super nice. In fact, I ended up talking, I think, to one or two of them. Really found it intriguing of all the people I was meeting out there. We toured all over Wyoming, and we finally we were going to drive into Yellowstone. So there's a long road that takes you, and all of a sudden we start to see where the fire was, because there was a big fire raging in Yellowstone at the time, and they had not had it all contained. And we were driving down these roads, and I was like, oh my God. And we were just looking at total destruction. And I was like, oh my God, I hope Yellowstone didn't take this much damage. And as we're driving, I see this pine tree, and we stop and look at it, and there is, and I photographed this. I know I photographed all this stuff, but I can't find one stinking photo. I found 4 photographs out of my insanely amount of photographs that I have of Yellowstone, and I don't know where I put all that stuff. I am baffled, absolutely baffled, where all those pictures went. But there's this pine tree. At the very top of the pine tree, there's a split. Okay, at the very inside that split is a log, and it's got to be I can only imagine that the log is maybe 2.5 to maybe 3 feet long total, and it's sitting inside that wedge at the very top of that tree, and that tree is at least 60 feet tall. And I was like, how in the hell did somebody, or why in the hell would somebody climb up that tree and stuff that? And I thought, well, maybe it's Sasquatch related, because I have never seen anything like that before. Drove all the way to where we thought we could get into the entrance, and they said that the east entrance was closed. So they said you can go to the north or you can go to the south, but there's no guarantees. So then we turn around and we drive all the way back out, and we drive down to the south entrance. Come around, come up. Again, we're seeing, we can see the Tetons over here, and we're coming up to where we're driving through. I'm drawing blanks on all the areas we were driving. We were driving through some really pretty areas. I'm just drawing blanks on everything out there. But as we're coming up through, it said the south entrance was closed. Okay, so we turn around, and they said the west entrance was open. So we had to drive all the way around, cut up through Idaho. And from Idaho, you could see the reverse side of the Tetons. And that was wickedly cool. I would love to hike up the long stretch just to look over the edge and look down at the rest of the earth, because it looks like something out of a sci-fi film. It was mind-blowing to see the Tetons in reverse, seeing all the trees going up that, and then it just stops, and you can see the jagged rock, and you could just imagine, running for your life from a grizzly and go, ah, and then you could run some more. It looked like something out of the Roadrunner, and Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. It just looked something like that. It was baffling. So we drive up and we make this turn to go down to the entrance, and this the entrance was open. as we're driving down to it, we didn't see half as much charring going on. Like the other two entrances were just gnarly. But I did notice that there's all these baby aspens on the right side, and one of the baby aspens, or the series of baby aspens, were split, like they were growing up, and something pushed to the side, and then and it was like a series of breaks going, and then it made a path through the aspens. I was like, what the hell made that? That is weird. And I know I photographed that thing, and we just kept going on and on. We finally get through the entrance, and I asked, hey, do you know if there's any camping available? And they said just about every campground is booked up. The only places you can go is this place called Lewis and Clark, Lewis and Clark campground. It's near the south end. And I was like, oh, all right. So we traveled around, and we ended up spending one night at the really big Yellowstone. I won't call it the inn, but I don't know if that's what it's called. I'm drawing a blank on the building. It's a really big old building, and I wanted to stay inside that building, but they didn't have any vacancies. But they did have a vacancy in one of the other buildings that was attached to it. So we ended up spending one night there, and we were like, well, let's go look around. And so we parked the car, we grabbed our stuff, put it in the room. We went out to, I think it's Old Faithful, and we walked up to it, and we're both staring at, they're talking about the whole thing and everything. Big crowd of people, plenty of places to sit. And I started to notice the ground formations shifting. And I was like, what am I looking at? And I was like, I'm seeing things. And I could see the trees kind of swaying as it's going. And I was like, am I breathing in the gases from the earth and I'm seeing this? What is going on? Darla was seeing the same thing, but we weren't saying anything to each other because neither one of us wanted to sound like we were like loonies, because we were seeing the formation or the ground moving for Old Faithful. And I was like, what the hell? And it was just strangest thing. If that thing blew at that moment in time, we would be dead. But it didn't. Old Faithful, boom, it went up. They told us all about it. They said they told us about the pools around the areas and how they'll think, oh, this looks great. I just want to rest my aching feet inside these things. And they dip their feet inside and they get 1st-degree burns or 8th-degree burns or whatever the highest number of degrees you could possibly get by putting your feet into some of this stuff. And there's acid content to some of this stuff. There are people that will run up and they'll jump in one, and by the time they'll hear them screaming, they go running out to where that pool is, and all they find are their teeth. Nothing else. The rest of them went down inside the hole and they're gone. It's crazy. But I walked around and I was photographing a lot of stuff. Darla decided that she wanted to go back to the room and I wanted to explore. So I hiked all around those boardwalks that they've got set up. And it's pretty interesting. I found a pool that is absolutely strange. Really strange. There are human there's human good God. There's human boot prints in the salt walking along. And what I photographed, and I have the picture, and I'll put it here. The picture shows a very strange footprint. And it's like somebody's walking along without any shoes or socks on, and they're walking through the salt, and it's a pretty wide stand. You'll see how far apart these are. But they go all the way around this pool in between other pools, and it goes. And it shows the footprints of probably a ranger walking alongside, like where they were going up and around and out. It is weird. And you can see, like, it looks like a fist imprint, in that as well. Really strange stuff. This does not look like a human footprint. This has a human feel, but it's not a human footprint because this thing is a lot larger than that boot is. But you have, you have that going on. And then I found another situation where almost the same thing. It was really strange. But I walked around and I come across buffalo. And I'm like, oh crap. Because I know what a buffalo can do. And I'm watching tourists running up going, oh, a buffalo. I want to get its picture. And I'm like, oh crap. So I bring my camera up and I was filming the buffalo too. But with my camera, I can be on the other side of the park and photograph that buffalo and still get a good shot. These guys have these little point and shoot cameras and they're like, or their cell phones like, hey, buffalo. And the rangers are going, get away from the buffalo. And they're screaming at these people and they're just like, it's okay. And they're like, it's not a loving animal. What do you think you're doing? It doesn't want you next to it. And then they would kind of get up and then they would stand up and you would see these people going, oh crap. And they're like, back away real slow. Back away real slow. And you could see the hairs on the buffalo go, brrrk. And I was like, well, the cockles are standing up and they're like, you need to get away from the buffalo now. And they finally backed away. And the rangers, well, if you don't listen to them, they'll write you a ticket. There you go, because you're stupid. You deserve that ticket. And I was like, I'm glad I'm not receiving that ticket. I did as many wide berths around buffalo as I could, and it was crazy because there was a lot of buffalo in around that inn. So I ended up going back to the room, was taking some nighttime photographs, and then ended up going to bed to get up the next morning. And we found out that while we were checking in, we were part of a Japanese ad or a commercial, and they were filming it while we were there. And they asked us if we gave permission for us to be on film for that commercial. We're like, sure, why not? And so we in 2016, we were part of a commercial for Yellowstone in Japan. And to me, I thought that was pretty strange. But then we ended up driving around. So we're looking for a camping spot. And we tried every camping spot. No vacancy. Everything was written as no vacancy. So we finally decided to go down to Lewis and Clark Campground, which is due south. And it's right near the gate to get in. So we pull in. Now, I'm going to show you a location where we were camped at. And maybe you can have the same strange experience as I did there. I don't know. Who knows? But this is in 2016, so it's been a while. It's almost 8 years ago. So, and when you come in, you go down, and there's a ranger station inside there. But you pull in, and there's a weird little loop at the bottom of the furthest south spot you could get to. That's where we were camped. And I'll point it out on the map. But we had gotten there, and there's a bathroom real close to where we were at. We're sleeping out of my car. We had it set up to where I had a futon in the back, and it was really comfortable. The car is a great car for camping. I have a Honda Element, and this vehicle, yielded itself perfectly for us. So we had moved food from inside the car to these bear cages, or they're not bear cages. It's like a bear box. It's supposed to keep your food safe, keeps hopefully people from getting into it. Well, the people that were camped next to us took our food. They left the water but took our food. That was really nice of them. I'm glad I packed up all of our camping supplies because otherwise these guys would have probably taken everything from us. So that night, I broke out my night vision camera, and I said I'm going to film, and Darla said that's fine. I'm going to read, and I said okay. So I closed the hatch on her so that way nothing can really get in at her. And here I am. I take my camera and I'm filming these little water droplets on these pine needles. Well, I hear something to my right. So outside of our car, the ground goes up and there's like a little lump. Or a little lump. It's like a little tiny hill, goes up, and there's a picnic table. And you go up over here, and there it goes a little higher. There's another picnic table. You go over this direction. There's another little hill, another picnic table. They have 3 picnic tables for 2 campsites. It was weird. A weird setup. So I take my camera, and I'm filming this, and I hear noise. So I go around these trees, and I go up this little hill, and there's the first picnic table. You can see on the video, you can see what looks like the picnic table itself. A little bit below it is the seat. And what I'm looking at are these reflective objects. And at first I thought maybe these were something that the Forestry Service puts on trees, like little reflective things. So if you're using a flashlight, you can kind of follow your way around. Well, I noticed when I wasn't looking through the camera, I could see these reflective things going all the way up this one tree, and it was a column of weird reflective lights all the way up. And I was like, what is that? So I take the camera, I'm looking through it, and I'm adjusting it, and I start focusing in on what looks like what I thought was an eye. And I was like, well, that's weird. So I'm looking at it, and there's a bunch of branches all, blocking the view. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I notice that the eye becomes really in focus. And it's kind of split. And it's weirdly cut, like through the pupil and all that. It's weirdly cut. And I was like, what am I looking at? And then I realized I can see another one. And the nose comes into play. Now, the nose is weird because everything is in pristine detail. Now, there's no audio on this. You can't hear anything because my camera doesn't have audio functions. But you can see the nose. You can see the flaring of the nostrils. The nose looks a lot bigger than my nose does. And then I noticed that as I'm filming in between the table and the seating area. And I'm locked on this thing. I'm like, what am I looking at? And all these branches start to fade into the skin, like it's absorbing into the skin, and it is freaky. The little berry things that you find on like some juniper plants looks like are growing on this guy's face, or male or female's face. I think it's a guy, but looks like they're forming on the skin, and it's weird. So if you look at my nose and you see my upper lip, it's only 1 finger deep. On this thing, I could do this on the video, and on where the pinky is where his upper lip sits. And I was like, what? What am I looking at? This is weird. So I keep staring at it, and I'm filming it, and I hear something to my right. So I'm like, okay. So as I'm pulling off of this, it looks like it's doing this. And I was like, and I pull off the video, and I turn and I start running up this other hill. Forget about this guy. So I go running up this hill, and I stop, bring the camera back up. I get it a little bit functioned, and I can see an object. Now, I'm thinking deer in my head for whatever reason. What I'm seeing it looks like an oversized, almost like this thing is big. Or whatever it is, it looks like a large medicine ball. And this thing is rotating, I'd say clockwise. I want to say it's rotating clockwise, but it's spinning on like a z-axis. And as it's going, it moves away from me, and I'm right behind. I'm tracking it. I'm just right behind as it's going, and for some reason I can hear movement, like something's running away from me. But I got an orb of some sort that's rotating on its own, and it's avoiding trees. It's not going through the trees. It's avoiding them. It's following the contours of the ground, and it's rotating until I lose it in the trees. And I catch it for probably about, 15, 20 seconds on video. So that's what you're going to see at the end of this. So we're coming up to 19 minutes and maybe 30 seconds. My name is Patrick. This was part 1 of maybe 2 or 3 parts. This is Sasquatch in the Wild, and I hope you're enjoying the journey. I will put out another video on Wednesday. Talk to you later.